Mercury retrograde. What is it? When is it? And what does it mean? Hey there, this is Lori Barnes, your astrology coach, here to talk to you about Mercury retrograde. So we have a Mercury in retrograde happening right now. Mercury retrograde happens 3 times a year, generally speaking, and it gives us time to refocus, realign, review, revise, and look backward to move forward. It's my favorite way to describe Mercury retrograde. Yes, it's annoying because of the communication problems that often come with Mercury retrograde, but I believe that there are great things that we can do under Mercury retrograde, helpful things that we can do. When we purposely work with a Mercury retrograde cycle, we are going through life as a spiral instead of a linear forward facing only type of momentum, because that is not how nature works. Nature works in a spiral. When we try to go only linear, we tend to lose the benefits of looking back and understanding that we go up and down, or kind of around and up and around and up. What goes up must come down. We must have that, opposite side. We can't just always go faster, bigger, longer. That's not realistic. So Mercury retrograde is about taking those pauses, taking the time to reflect and look back on where we've been and what we've done, so that when we move forward, we are better equipped to keep progressing. Mercury retrograde is a time to look back to the 3 months since the last retrograde. What have you done? What have you pushed forward? Just take a look at it. Each time we have a Mercury retrograde, it's in a different sign. So it's in a different part of your chart. And when you have your chart and you know where the different signs fall in your chart, it can give you a lot more information. So I'm going to speak in generalities here, but if you have your chart, look at the house where Taurus is and what that house represents, what people, what topics, because that's going to give you more information as to what's activated. But if you plan to work with Mercury retrogrades, then you're planning your pauses for 3 times a year when you can just reflect back, find any errors, strengthen your foundation, take up projects that have been put on the shelf, finish up projects that have already been started. The one thing that is not typically the best thing to do is to start something completely new. You've probably heard that before. If you can put that into the time after Mercury goes direct, that would be better. The shadow period started on April the 7th. And that's when Mercury covered the degree that it's going to retrograde back to. And then on April the 21st, it goes retrograde. That's going to be at 15 degrees Taurus. And then it's going to retrograde all the way back to 5 degrees of Taurus. And then it'll go direct on May the 14th, and it'll start moving forward again, covering that same ground now for the 3rd time. And it will leave the post-retrograde shadow on June the 1st. So the shadow periods are the period before it goes retrograde and the period after it goes direct, where it's covering that same ground that it goes forward, it goes backwards, it goes forward. In the sign of Taurus, we want to think about Taurus types of things and always apply this concept. I'm reviewing, refining, realigning, redoing. Any words you can put RE in front of would help to understand what would be helpful during a Mercury retrograde. In the sign of Taurus, we're talking about a fixed earth sign. It's about material possessions, your pace, steady pace, moving too slow, moving too fast. It's about sensual enjoyment. It's about how you may have fallen into old outworn patterns. Being a fixed sign, it's like maybe holding on to doing things the way that you've always done them or have done them for a long time, and it's time for a change. So it's about where you're resistant to change, or, just reflecting on, where are you resistant and why. Removing stuck patterns, bringing practicality to situations, finding ways to ground yourself. It's an earth fixed sign, so it's really getting down to practicality. And its opposite sign is Scorpio, so you might want to think about Scorpio things like finding inspiration, looking deeper into the subject, doing a lot of introspective work. Back to Taurus, you want to think about nourishment. How are you nurturing your body? How are you feeding your senses? And how well are you balancing reality or realistic approach to things versus an idealistic approach to things? You want to find new ways to be inspired by looking to the past. It's really a great time to find, reflect, and realign old patterns that just need to be given up so that you can start doing something in a new way when Mercury goes forward again. Look at where things aren't working, where are things falling apart, where are you being pushed to change? Allow yourself to accept these messages that are coming to you, because sometimes they're uncomfortable messages and you just want to push them away and be like, no, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to see that. I don't want to know that. But under a Mercury retrograde, those are times to be like, okay, I'm going to look at this. I'm going to be open to it. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to accept that they are there and actually evaluate it. I mean, you can do all this inside. Nobody needs to know that you're considering making this change. Maybe you've been very resistant. And if you decide you're going to make that change, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're making that change. Right? But this is what Mercury retrograde can bring up for you. It can just bring up things that it's like, I don't want to change this, but it's time. Always look to your chart and what house the retrograde is happening. And if there's something in your birth chart that's being activated by the Mercury retrograde, because that's going to give you more information. I love helping people work with Mercury retrograde cycles. I focus on helping people find their purpose and their calling, especially as it relates to their mission. Like, a lot of times it's career, but it's bigger than career. So if you want to know more about how the Mercury retrograde is operating in your chart, and especially how you can use this for self-growth and development, please contact me through my website, loribarnesastrology.com, and book a session with me. So I hope you have a productive and helpful Mercury retrograde, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.